Hey everybody, what's up? It's your friend Chase. Welcome to another episode of the Chase Jarvis Live show here on Creative Live. You all know this show. This is where I sit down with amazing humans and I do everything I can to unpack their brains with the goal of helping you live your dreams in career, in hobby, and in life. My guest today has an amazing story. She was on food stamps 5 years ago and has since built a company, a venture investment company with more than 30 employees across 4 states and 2 countries, and has invested millions in startups for underrepresented populations. My guest is the one and only Arlan Hamilton. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So, first of all,
yes.
I saw your picture on the cover of Fast Company magazine in the fall.
That was me.
And I immediately, went right to the story, was so inspired. It seems like both an unlikely and amazing turn of events to be being on food stamps, to be investing literally millions of dollars in, I think I read more than 100 investments.
Yeah, more than 100 now.
All of the investments have underrepresented populations, women, people of color, and our LGBTQ founders.
Right,
There's
2 that don't fit that, and they were very early investments, and it was my sandbox. Thought I'd give them a chance, give the white guys a chance. But it was really it was my kind of sandbox to experiment with it, and one is doing great and one's not doing great. But yeah, it's women, people of color, LGBT, all things that I identify as.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
In order to find out how someone goes from food stamps to basically trying to disrupt and reinvent, and successfully, it sounds like, a lot of the Silicon Valley paradigm where something like 90% of the startups are funded by and run by white males.
That's right.
I think in order to understand what's going on today with you, it would be helpful to go back. Yeah. So can you take me to the world of when Arlan was young? And I remember you were born in Mississippi and raised in Dallas.
That's right. I was born in Jackson, raised in Dallas. Really, really soon after that, have a mother, Erlene Sims, single mom, and my younger brother, Alfred, who is now a rapper and a producer in Dallas.
Amazing.
Who is just doing his thing there. And we had a really loving childhood, but we were broke. We had no money, ever. And it was pretty chaotic just because we kept moving, had to move a lot because we couldn't afford the rent. And, I don't know if a lot of people who are watching know this, but a lot of times when you're in apartments, if you stay in an apartment like this, you can get kind of a deal if you move in, get like a half month off the rent or something, first month free. So we would kind of go towards those deals. And
oh, wow.
It was kind of chaotic. So from a young age, I was watching that happen and I knew what was happening there. And I worked since I was 15 and helped pay the bills.
So did you move across the country or was it
No, I was in Dallas the whole time. And in fact, so close in proximity to each other that I was able to stay in the same school district, not only school district, but the same school. It was Lake Highlands Elementary, Lake Highlands Junior High, and Lake Highlands High School. Wow. I went from kindergarten to 12th grade for the most part to the school.
And lived in how many different places?
I think it was 8 or 9. I haven't really figured out the exact number. I may be undershooting it.
Everything over 2 is impressive. Yeah. Just 8 or 9. Wow.
Yeah, it was, for us and for me, it was really normal. It seemed very normal. And then it was when I was older that I started to understand that not everybody
You ask a few people, you're like, wait, you didn't move?
You didn't move. Like some people would move like once into a bigger place or a smaller place. But to move once a year.
I know that can be very, my wife's family moved all over. She went from Alabama to New Jersey to Georgia to Texas. And I know that was really, it was a hardship. And those are challenges that she had to overcome. Can't imagine 8 or 9.
8 or 9. Yeah, and I mean, I am grateful that it wasn't.
Yeah, in the same school.
It was in the same school. So I think if I had not gone to the same school the whole time, it would have just really messed me up.
Yeah.
Because I was already dealing with all this chaos. I think I would have been really detached and not able to make friends and things like that.
It sounds like in chasing the deals and, you know, discounted rent and things like that, it sounds like there was, even though there wasn't a lot of money, there's an entrepreneurial spirit that you got from your mother?
Yeah, my mom always, and still to this day, she's 70 this year, and to this day, she's, sorry, I'm distracted.
No, that's all right. We're in downtown Los Angeles. It's easily to be distracted.
I'm like, am I hearing things? My mom has always been, had ideas. She had these wonderful ideas. In fact, in her 50s, for the first time ever, she wrote a book.
What?
She had, you know, it was, she had the story in her head and she had to get it out. And so she had never written even a chapter or a blog post. And she decided to write a full fiction book in her 50s. And so these are, and you know, it wasn't just a book. It was, when she first showed me a few pages of it, I was terrified. I was like, how am I going to tell her if I don't like this thing? And what is this thing she's been
What's my role in her book?
Yeah, what do I do? Like, if I don't like it, you know, your mom, your family member has a vanity project. What do? It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. We showed it to other people. They were like, no, you're right. This is beautiful. It was just something that she always had in her, but none of us ever knew. And so she taught me about being an entrepreneur, but even more importantly, about sort of following that voice that you have.
Instincts.
Following that against all odds.
Well, what's the first step that you feel like you took in your mom's image or inspiration that put you on the path that you're on right now? Because to be, I don't want to say going against, because that's an adversarial terms, but in order to try and change something, you got to challenge convention.
Yes.
So was there a particular project or moment early in the time in your childhood that you felt like connects you with what you're doing now?
I was always odd. I was always an oddball. Even as early as third grade, I would wear 6 watches with 6 different time zones because I was fascinated by the fact that people lived other places and had different. Some people were sleeping.
It was the nighttime, right?
Yeah, it was amazing.
6 watches on one hand?
No, on 2 hands. Now I was a lady. Okay. So 2 hands, really cheap, gumball machine watches, or and I still to this day would rock 2 probably. I'd rock 2 like Velcro watches for sure.
Nice.
And it was just something that connected me to other people in a way. And I don't know why at this age I felt like I needed to be connected to people in other countries, but it's something that has stayed with me my whole life, and it definitely got called things and looked at differently. I didn't care. I just knew that it was the right thing for me, and I knew that I wasn't hurting anyone, so I did it. Wow. And that's basically how I lived my life.
Like global citizen from third grade.
Yeah, world citizen, yeah.
And I also remember hearing something about T-shirts.
T-shirts, yeah.
So
I sold a world citizen shirt back in the day, and I mean 20s.
Okay.
And I've sold all types of shirts and thousands of them.
Is it a political statement, putting your message out in the world? Is it to earn money? Is it both? Like, what was the?
In every case, it was to earn money because I was I was broke as a child, never got out of that, never had made more than a few $1,000s a year. I think the most I ever made in one year was when I was 21. I made about $20,000. That's the most I made before I started my fund. Wow. It blows my mind today. But like the way it started was I was around probably 22, 23. I had already taught myself how to do put together a tour, and I toured with a punk band from Norway. I'll tell you all about it. And I was in Jackson, Mississippi. I was staying with family because, again, we had run out of money at some point. And I was like, it wasn't like this downtrodden, sad kind of thing. It was sort of like I was always happy and always, not always happy, but always like curious. So one day I looked at one of P. Diddy's shirts.
Okay.
And he just had the word Diddy on it, or Puff, or whatever it was at that time. Whatever it was a few years ago.
We've lost track, yeah.
And people...
What is it now?
I think it's Diddy.
Okay.
And he was selling these shirts for like $60, $80, $100. It just had his name on it.
Wow.
And I thought, how genius is it to sell advertising for the next shirt to be bought? I thought that was great. So I just, out of like for giggles, but also curiosity and sort of experimentation, I connected with a designer who lived in another state, online on AOL or something.
Okay.
And I said, hey, can you just make me a shirt, like a design for my name? And he made this shirt that said Arlan, and I had this quote that my heart was inexhaustible. It's a quote, I've lived so much, someday they will have to forget me forcibly. And it put that quote in kind of calligraphy or whatever, and my name was the main thing. And I was just like, for fun, let me kind of make a little website for this and see if it sells. It sold. Nobody knew me.
Wow.
Nobody knew me. But first my friends would buy it, and then people outside of it would buy it. And I was just like, this is fascinating that I can sell a shirt that just has my name on it. And then I made other designs with my name, and people bought it. And so after that, I would, well, I was a big fan of the L Word, this TV show for gay women and what I like to call lesbian adjacent women. And I had this blog and all of this, and I would write about the show. It's coming back this year, actually.
Oh.
It is, the reboot,
Ooh.
Yes. I can't wait. I can't wait to either love it or hate it.
Okay, this is going to be amazing. I want to know more.
I started 2 different shirts from that idea. One of them was, you know how there's Jesus is my homeboy. I would do Shane is my homegirl, or homo girl.
Oh.
And I sold thousands of these. They were featured in the DVDs for L Word, like the show themselves loved it.
Wow.
And because people could walk around, and it was an icebreaker. And then I had this idea one day to do custom shirts. And they said, I'd go gay for, and you could put your whatever name you wanted there.
Oh my.
So I had started with I'd go gay for Angelina. Those sold out really fast. And then people could tell me what they wanted. So I would do the popular ones in bulk, and the ones that people, I would have those, take a little bit longer what they'd be. And so I sold a bunch of these shirts over time. I mean, if I knew anything about like business, I probably would be a millionaire already.
Just off t-shirts?
Yeah, just off shirts and these ideas that I had. One day I called my mom. I was living in California at this time, and I called her and I said, Mom, I just want you to know, just before you see it, because I just, she's from the South and was religious, and she was completely okay with me being gay, but I just want to let you know, I have these shirts that say I'd go gay for, and they're selling really well.
Yeah.
So
just heads up, you're gonna see
heads
this.
up. So she goes, you hear a pause, like this long pause, and she goes, make me one that says I'd go gay for Oprah. And then from that point, I was like, you know what? I was like, it's a new day. Yeah, I don't have to worry. Yeah, it was great. So I sold a bunch of those. I sold some other ones. I sold one that said, what it was. No, I can't remember what it. I sold so many of them. I can't remember so many of them. Oh, before the madness, before he broke our heart, I sold honorary Huxtable shirts.
Amazing.
Yeah. Because every black kid I knew of a certain age wanted to be a Huxtable. Yeah. So honorary Huxtable, and those sold, and I was slinging them shirts.
There's a big gap though between selling t-shirts online.
Sure.
And having a multi-million-dollar venture fund.
Not really.
Okay, this is beautiful because for those folks at home, wherever you are in your journey, we're just hearing from Arlan right now that there's not really that much different from where you are to where you want to be. So tell us this story.
That's absolutely right. There are years in between. There's a lot of heartache in between, a lot of tears, a lot of discomfort in between.
Okay.
But it's the same curiosity. It's the same good intent. It's the same drive and ambition and desire to be connected to people and to make people smile and to make people happy and either brighten their day or their lives. All of it's the same. And yeah, there's a lot that's happened in between, but I feel like all these things I've worked on kind of have that common thread.
It's weird, you can only connect the dots looking backwards, right? This helped me understand this entrepreneurial adventure helped me do this. So if you can only connect the dots looking backwards, what were some of the dots as you look back between t-shirt sales and one other qualifier? I've often said that, you know, when I'm talking to, say, an audience of photographers or creators, like the difference between selling your photograph for $100 and $10,000 is largely who you're talking to. So if you can find a way to talk to the right people,
that's right.
That, you know, you're more likely to be successful, and that is largely comes from a privileged point of view, because how can you put yourself in a position where you're able to talk to those people?
Exactly.
You had to do that though.
I
because
made
you
my
went,
way. Yeah.
You went from food stamps to raising a $5 million fund.
Yeah.
So, what were some of the steps that you took to have a different audience? The T-shirt to fund of fund.
Yeah. So I will answer your question, but I have to say before I do that, I've talked to people who have been homeless, people who have been down and out, people have been, or just don't have that much money. They're not like, you know, suffering.
Yep.
I've talked to billionaires. Same thing. Same. There's a little bit of disconnect of like, okay, how much does a tank of gas cost and that sort of thing. But really, they're all looking for, as Oprah says, they're all looking to be heard. Like they really are.
Heard, yep.
They're looking for that validation. And anytime I've not seen myself somewhere, like for instance with venture funding and the venture world and the startup space, I didn't see a black woman who was writing checks, who was out there, who was someone that I could reach out to and say, I started this company, can you help me? Anytime I've been in that position, I've thought, well, who's to say that I can't create my own or build my own either chair for the table or my own table.
Yep.
And so, many, many steps for it. But
a couple of key ones. Relationship, a moment in time.
Here's a good example, and it comes from the music world. So before I got into this is one of the big dots. Before I got into the touring, after the T-shirts, I was a production coordinator and tour manager for musicians. And it was something that I fell in love with doing. And I had taught myself how to book a tour for this Norwegian pop punk band called Golden Boy. And it's because I liked their songs and I wanted to hear them play live, and they didn't have a tour. So I said, if I book you a tour,
can I hear you every night?
Yeah, will you come out to America and tour? And they're like, sure. So I taught myself with the yellow pages and with, there was no Google or anything. I just taught myself how to book this tour. And so I had learned to do that. I did everything I could on those tours. Singer-songwriter tours followed. And I realized I want to now work on these big arena shows. I think that or House of Blue, anything bigger than what I was doing, because I've done that and I feel like I'm qualified to now go to the next step. I didn't have any connections. Had no one that I knew who could help me get those jobs, get an interview, and I certainly didn't know these bigger musicians. So I set out and I said to myself, I'm going to reach out to 100 production managers and tour managers in like a 2-month period. And I researched everyone I could, and I pulled information from online and from old emails and all sorts of things. And I found out not just their names and their email addresses, but a little bit about each one, what their resume was, so that I could understand how I could talk to them. And I wrote to 100 of them, and I made at least the first paragraph personal, customized.
Yep.
And I basically said, like, I've never gone on a tour of the size that you all work in. However, I'd like to be able to. And again, it was about not seeing myself there. I said, I don't see any black women who are tour managers on a large scale. I didn't know any. I since then have found one. Her name is Tina Ferris.
Thank you, Tina.
And she's amazing. But I didn't see it. So I said, in order for me to be one day, I'm going to have to be your apprentice. I'm going to have to break into this. And I will do a good job because I have every incentive to. and I've done this, and that, and, you know, taught myself to book and taught myself what all these things were. And 10 out of 100, I got 20 responses.
Wow.
And I got 3 in-person interviews. And I got my first gig. And
That's
my
the
first
funnel
gig.
right there.
Yeah.
You understood the funnel, right?
Right.
100 leads,
100
20 follows.
Absolutely.
3 interviews.
The only
and
one that I
conversion.
could predict was the 100, because that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Or what I could do.
Was there so that's the funnel for those folks. That's just basically like sales leads. If you want to talk to a lot of people, then you have to, or if you want to convert a certain amount of people, you got to talk to a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So in that world, to me, like the emotional intelligence, to understand that was how the world worked, and then B, to write 100 letters and to be able to articulate a point of view. That's where I see so many creators and entrepreneurs struggle.
Yeah.
Is that a thing that you teach or aspire to? Is that just part of the get in the door fee? Like, do you teach that? Do you believe that?
I mean, I think that, so I didn't go to college. Out of school, I was just so concerned about how my home life and everybody being broke. I didn't feel like it'd be great for me to go off to college. So I think what I lack in certain knowledge that's, you know, very specific, I can make up for in communication. And I figured that out. And I thought, well, let's double down on what you're good at. Let's double down on that connection to people and expressing yourself in a way. And I think it's just about figuring out, like, some people, terrible readers, but amazing orators, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like just figuring out what you're good at and not dwelling on the stuff that you're not.
Yeah.
And doubling down on what you're good at and making that part of that craft that you hone,
Yeah.
you know, as much as possible.
Just noticing your sweatshirt here, Backstage Capital.
Yes.
And it's all making sense to me now. The T-shirt in your history.
Yeah.
So you're making T-shirts
Yeah,
and
my brother
slinging
made
those
this
things.
one.
And then backstage, the stage, the tour manager, the being a supporting role for entrepreneurs.
Yes. All of it.
I just had this like
the Winona gif just happened.
I love it.
Yeah.
So you got your gig from 100 down to 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Now
then
what's
I
next?
went on to, I worked at all kinds of jobs before that. So I worked at the night shift, graveyard shift at banks and coding checks, which every time I would hit click the button to check in, I felt like a gunshot, you know, when you clocked in.
Yeah.
It was like, and I had done that. I worked since I was 15 on every kind of data entry job you can imagine, every kind of retail, everything. And so I did get that first gig, and that was, I would have been 30 when I first got that.
Wow.
Before then, I published a music magazine. I sold a bunch of shirts. I had a blog. I did a lot of stuff that was sort of.
Do you feel like were you trying to find the thing that you were passionate about, or were all of those things?
I was passionate about it. I didn't do anything I wasn't passionate about.
That's an interesting
I think
key.
I just never. I think that's why when I discovered, like I didn't know about the Silicon Valley place.
Yeah.
When I discovered that when I was 31-ish, I think that's why, like, everything else started to make sense. Everything else I had done started to make sense because I had always been this weirdo who was doing these things and had no safety net, but was always making people excited and bringing people together. I had so many couples who found each other in my blog, who got married, like all sorts of things. But it was never a great business model, none of it. And when I discovered Silicon Valley, I thought, oh, you can partner with people who get that part. You know, you can be, I guess, I don't want to call myself a visionary, but you can have those visionary tendencies and not have to do everything and figure everything out. And so many people knew this before, and I just didn't know it. So once I figured that out, that is when all of the things that I had done in the past, from the time I was selling candy in the 3rd grade to working on major arena tours that I got myself to, all of those things and all of the heartache in between, all the terrible times in between, it all made sense because I thought, this is it. This is the answer. I can find my team here, my tribe here, and work on one singular focused mission and put all of my energy into having that backed. And once I decided, okay, I want to have a venture-backed company, that's when I started doing all this research.
Go back into the research phase, just like you did with the band stuff.
Absolutely. I started doing research. I wanted to know what I was getting myself into when I walked into these rooms. So I never set out to become a venture capitalist. I just wanted to know how they thought. I wanted to know what they did. I wanted to know everything that they, as much as I could, about what they did so that we would be on par with each other in the room. And for me, it was, again, an exercise and a curiosity that I was very excited about. When I started doing the research, that was when I realized, oh, oh, wow, this is a very homogenous world, and only certain people are getting in. Like, there's only certain people who have the code word, the password to get in. And I can learn about this world and break that for myself and get in and probably raise a few $1 million. And I really thought that while I was, sitting on a blow-up bed in my apartment. I was like, I probably can figure this out. I can crack this code. But wouldn't it be even more interesting if I cracked the code for a lot more people? And we just went for it. And could we reshape? Could we do the thing in the Back to the Future where they have the two parallel time, part two now?
Yeah, be careful.
Yeah, let's be specific. Part two. Could we do that where if I hadn't done anything and it was going to be like this, could I do this and steer it a different way? And that, when I started thinking through all of those what ifs and could we's, and I imagined what the world could look like in a few years if I tried and if I succeeded, it was worth the risk of not.
One of the things that I've, through the course of this show and my own creative and entrepreneurial journey, trying to figure everything out in the same way that you described, what I've learned is that the types, kinds, backgrounds of people who are inventive, who are entrepreneurial, who are inspirational, who are these different attributes, whatever your list of attributes are, they come from every walk of life.
Sure.
Yet what we see is only a narrow swath.
Yeah.
And it's, that's one of the reasons that Creative Live exists, honestly, is to try and provide access free or very affordably to people who otherwise might not be able to tap into that.
Yeah.
Was this is that something that you found in your research? And B, if so, is that a message that you tried to bring into these rooms? Or if it's not, what was your point of view?
No, absolutely. It was the foundation of why I started Backstage and why I decided to go that route rather than the sort of island route, of what can I get from this. It was that, very innocently, I started reaching out to founders, and I mean all kinds of founders, Black women, white men, everything else,
Okay.
And I would just reach out to someone who had a cool company that I liked or a cool website.
I never got a call from
cool website. If I had known you, you would have gotten the email with my blood type and all kinds of my life story in it. Cool. So you're probably better off.
All right.
But I would reach out very innocently, kind of early in this process, and just say, "Hey, can I talk to you? Can I learn from you? Can I help you with something? I'll do something for free, and that way I can learn a little bit because I'm doing this sort of immersion, teaching myself bit here." And it was in talking to these founders, and again, this is 2012-ish.
Okay.
Where right now, I think most people hear about diversity and inclusion every day of their lives. They're almost like, come on, do we need another diversity and inclusion speech, right?
They've even shorthanded its D&I
now. Yeah, then it's going to be But in 2012, when I was starting this conversation, people were not talking about it. In fact, I was told by people in Silicon Valley who I had emailed, some of them wrote back and said, we don't talk about that. Like, we being the royal we don't talk about that. And the founders who I was talking to, they were all working on their own thing, so they didn't know what the other was going through. So, I had reached out to, for instance, Patreon, Jack Conte.
Oh yeah, I know Jack.
Yeah.
Jack's been on the show.
Yeah,
of course,
I reached out to him the first hour he was
I'm really
live.
bummed that I didn't get reached out
so
to. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. It's a thread I'm going to continue to pull.
I'll good.
So Jack.
So I reached out to him
Jack.
the first hour that they were live, because I knew. Wow. Yeah, I said as soon as I saw that site, and the site was very different than it is today. But I saw the potential, and I reached out to him and I said, I want to help you. I want to help you here, and I also think I can help you get some money, like get some raise. And at first they said no, we're good, and then like 2 days later they wrote back and said, actually, we might want to start raising. So what do you got? Who can you connect this to? So I connected them to a lot of people, and that's a whole other story in itself. But Jack wouldn't have known that Rebecca, a black woman in Detroit who was working on her company, he wouldn't have known that she was not even getting not even getting in the door, not even getting a response to an email. And she wouldn't have understood that it wasn't supposed to be that hard. Yeah. And so, like, talking to all types of people, I was able to have this sort of bird's eye view. And that is when going back to your question, I did understand, wow, so many people are working on amazing things. It's not like all the white guys were working on legitimate things and all the black guys were not. Everybody was working on some awesome stuff. It's just that by and large, not everybody, not all the time, but by and large, if you were a black founder that I met in 2012, 2013, no matter what you were working on, you were doing it with a tenth or less of the resources for whatever reasons you combine. And I knew some of the reasons, and some of the reasons I was curious about. And to me, as a black gay woman, that was disheartening on many levels, and it pulled at my heartstrings. Mm-hmm. But more than that, I said, whoa, the investor who figures this out first and becomes the call that you make if you're a founder who's not a white guy, the way that life works, the way that trends work, the way that I've seen this happen, and the way that they can do so much with so little, they're going to win. Yeah, there's a meta play going on right here. You are realizing that if you can be that person, mm-hmm. Did you put yourself in that role immediately, or was it like, no, this role needs to exist? I said the role needed to exist, and I started telling everybody I could. I went to these major funds. Through email, through phone calls, I would set up meetings with them, and I would say, okay, they're gonna love this. How can they deny this? I'd say, look, and I was in Texas. I didn't know anything about salaries. I didn't know anything about carry. I taught myself about carry, but I didn't really know what I was asking for. So they were getting me at a discount. Yeah. So I would call them up and I'd say, look, I'm seeing something that I'm not seeing that you all are noticing yet. It's 2012, 13. I think in the next 5 years, this whole diversity thing is going to be a big deal. I can find you the companies and bring them to you, and I can vet them and bring you the best. And I'll give me a desk or something, and I'll do that. And didn't have any idea that there were scout programs for white guys. Yeah. Didn't know that was happening. Can you imagine if someone had the foresight to put me in a scout program in 2012? Can you imagine what could have happened for their fund? But I digress, because I'm glad they didn't. I said, this is what I have to offer, whether it's part-time, full-time. I wasn't asking for much. I was offering the world. And flat out, no. It was a medley of no's. And they were just not interested. And people wrote back and they were just like, yeah, it's not, we don't look at race around here. It's just not something that we think is a problem. And they were like saying that I was in the wrong for bringing it up. It was just not okay. And then and I'm talking about gender too. And I'm like there's white women out here who are building things and they don't get any money. And I'm telling you, they're brilliant and they're going to win without you. So why not? So I did that. Then I wrote about it, because nobody was listening to me one-on-one. So then I took it to the masses, which was 5 people. And then that turned into 500, and that turned into thousands. And I did this blog post called Dear White Venture Capitalists in the summer of 2015.
After Dear White People, the
Dear White
Justin
People.
Simeon has also been on the show.
Yes. So it was right around that time.
Amazing.
And in parentheses, I put, you're almost too late. It's like, and that was from the Drake. The Drake mixtape, both had happened around the same time.
Amazing.
So I did that.
And who puts those two things together?
Right.
That's incredible.
Right. So I wrote this, and I wrote it in a way, you can still read it online. It's on Medium. A lot of people read the title and they think, oh my God, I can't believe you're saying this. Actually, if you actually read it, I am being collaborative. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm saying, look, you're missing out here because you're afraid. You think it's like charity. You don't, sometimes you may speak up and you get yelled at. Let me tell you how to get in here so we all win. Don't you want to be the first to win with us? And I got a lot of, it went crazy that I wrote that while I was sleeping at the airport. I was awake at the time, but I was, I wrote that then, and like the next morning it was just, wow. And still though, nobody was checking for me when it came to like actual paying me for my thoughts and my time and my understanding.
Your vision.
Yeah, my vision. So then I said, I had already decided I'm going to start to raise this fund, had no traction on it, not at all. Then the blog post came out, a few other things happened where I would go in and somebody with like a millionaire investor that I saw, like maybe Chris Sacca, for instance. He's a billionaire now, but he was a millionaire at the time.
Yeah, good dude. Good
yeah.
friend.
So he was one of those people that when I wrote early on, they would respond and not be stupid. There were very few, but he was one of the people. Brad Feld was another.
Brad, brilliant.
When you reach out, he took me. Like I wrote him recently. He's now invested in our fund, and he's
Brad is?
and so is Chris and his wife Crystal. And I reached out to Brad recently, like in the last few months, and I just said, thanks for taking me seriously back then, because more than money or a job, I wanted to be taken seriously. So I just kind of recommend that for anyone who's in a position of power, is to not write people off so easily just because you're safe. Because not everybody's that safe. But things like Chris Sacca seeing me for the third year in a row saying the same thing and not being a tourist, then he starts to pay attention. Yeah, he starts to pay attention. I definitely found my way at one of his one of his speaking engagements, found my way a hack to go block his view for 15 minutes, so he had to listen to me, and then he invested.
It's effective.
But it was things like that, and finally, in September 2015, a woman named Susan Kimberlin, who is an angel investor in San Francisco, who used to work at Salesforce and PayPal. She had known me for about 3 months at that point. She's like, you know what? Let me give you a shot here. Let me see what you can do. And so she put that first amount of, kind of get you going money. And that's all I needed to know that I could pull it off. And you know what? I watched, I did two things. And maybe this will work for other people. It's totally
this is the best.
But this is totally wearing the right sweater when your sports team wins. It could work, it could not. But two things I did. One is I read Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Brilliant. Yep.
The same year that happened. And I understood myself. I recognized myself in such a big way when I read that. And that gave me a lot of confidence. Gave me white boy confidence. We can call it that. I don't know. I'm working with that. Does that work, white boy confidence? White man confidence?
I'm just listening and taking notes.
Let's see.
You do you.
The second is that almost every single year I watch The Secret of My Success with Michael J. Fox.
Wow.
And since I was a kid, I watched this. And I knew with all of my heart that, spoiler, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I knew that the end scene was going to happen in my life. It was, and you got to watch it if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's on Amazon Prime, and it's on this. And so I watched that the night or 2 nights before Susan said yes. And I'd watched it on purpose because I was waiting for her answer. And I was just like, and you have to understand, I had been sleeping on the floor. I had been wondering if I was going to eat for days. All of these things had been happening, but I said, I got to get myself psyched up. I got to
It's amazing the power of the mindset.
Oh, sure.
Can we dive into that just for a second?
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think when when I have had the good fortune of talking to people who are in a hard place but have a vision, I tend to see that mindset, the folks that are in the same position as someone else, they seem to me to be radically different if their mindset is different. All the other, like the constraints being reasonably equal,
right?
The mindset of that person, to me, is this, it's a catapult. It's a complete game changer. How, when you're, in your case, on food stamps, or to use your words, sleeping on the floor?
Yeah, it was.
How did you keep? What was the mindset? Was this something that was in from your parents? Is this something that you taught yourself? Is it like? So where did you get it? Where did you get it from, or did you build it yourself? And two, what did you actually do? We've heard two things. One, you read books and watched movies.
Yeah.
But what else? Give us a little more insight there.
Yeah, I can give you plenty. Some of it I have to save for the book. But I can give you plenty.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
She was just signed a book deal in the last 2 days.
With Penguin Random House in the last 7 days.
Congratulations.
Just a few days ago.
Give us the first shot. When the book's dropping, we want to help you spread that word, because it's going to be perfect for our audience.
That'd be great. I can't wait. I mean, I'm excited. I'm writing it now, and I'm just like super stoked about it.
Amazing.
But I'm just kidding mostly about that. So I did very specific. So you asked a couple of questions.
Yeah.
One is like, where did it come from?
Yep.
I definitely think watching my mom go through so much, and she has gone through so much before I was born and after. Watching her just do this with a certain humor, first of all, a certain lightness to it when needed, and kind of keeping us from the fray of it, and then watching how strong she was and how. She, when we were broke and she knew her kids needed to eat, she didn't have a problem working all day at a corporate job and then working overnight at 7-Eleven. It was just what you had to do to make it work. And to me, if she's willing to do that, and if she went through that, I can certainly be uncomfortable myself. And that's part of it. It was just like
comfort with being uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Second is that I don't think that that's you. That's not my head, right?
That's you. You're going up.
Second is that I don't think that there's anyone who I think everybody's equal. I think that we're all equal. We all deserve a spot here. This is all about, like, we were all given this. Everybody has a different opinion of how we got here and why we're here. But my opinion is that whatever that answer is, we're here, and we all have an equal piece of it. We all have an equal piece of the land, and the oxygen, and the potential. And so when I know that in my core, I can talk to anyone, and I can listen to anyone. So one of the things that I did, like during that time, it's just a lot of like talking to my, in my head, like just. It's just a will that I have. And speaking of will, there's this video that Will Smith has. He doesn't have it on YouTube. Somebody made it of all his inspirational things. I listen to things like that. Like watching things, having access to internet was such a wonderful privilege.
Yeah.
During this time, because I did have a laptop with me, and I did have internet in different places, and so watching people who inspired me. I mean, I consider that part of strategy. Yeah. You have to surround yourself. If you say you have to surround yourself with people who are positive, and you don't have those people physically with you, surround yourself with Oprah.
Yeah.
Have Oprah in your ear talking to you on video. Watch episodes of this show. Go back and just watch different episodes, and just build yourself up until you have other people who can. So I was just my own trainer at that time. I was my own. You got to do this, you're doing this. And it really helped. I talk to founders about this a lot. Two things. One is to know your intention, to know why you're doing something.
Yeah.
It's a huge deal to know why.
Yeah.
It changes everything when you realize, I don't really know why I'm doing this, why I'm working so hard for this thing, why I'm wanting this so much. Let me go back to the core of what it is. That's huge. But the second part is Whoa, I lost my thought for a second.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Just reasons why.
Yeah.
What's your why, and how do you control your mindset?
Yeah, I've lost it. Oh my goodness. I'm 38. Doesn't happen that soon, does it? Can't happen this soon. No way.
It happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I'm seated next to someone who you're a guest because you lived an amazing life, and I can just mostly sit back and listen if I forget myself.
Yeah. But
I'm really just focused on the mindset. Like you're doing a good job of unpacking the mindset and how you got that mindset.
Yes, do these exercises that help you with memory. Do them early, But it's really about the concept of
having mentors that are, if they're not in your physical life, online. I think that's huge.
It's everything. There's so many times that I've gotten myself out of a really dark place by listening to people talk in an inspirational way or listening to some good music. There are songs that have literally saved my life.
Wow.
Literally in the moment saved my life.
When you are in those moments, in those dark times, and you turn to those things, is there any other practice? Do you journal? Do you write any of these things down?
So
is it just about a mind shift?
Not then, but now I do, the last 3 years. So like post the first check,
okay.
I've started doing different things. One of them is I keep a draft of my email. I have a journal, but I don't really, I use it more for notes or to-do lists and things like that. But I do drafts, so 2 things that I do. One is that I really just keep up with what I have to do in this email draft, so no matter where I am, I can pull it up and do that. But the second thing is that I write my own headline. Headlines, plural. And I've been doing that for about 2 years.
What's an example?
So 2 years ago, I would have had like 1 or 2 pieces of, this article or that article. They would have been great.
Okay.
Since then, people will say, how are you everywhere?
Right.
What, do you have a marketing team? I do not have a marketing team. I have no PR team. It's all inbound. Okay. And I really believe that it's because I started writing my own headlines. And I'm not going to do it like the secret kind of person or whatever, but I just feel like for instance, they're never perfect. They're never whatever,
sure.
But I'll say, I had one going for a while. Backstage Capital invests in 100 companies by 2020. And I put the date as like 2020, because I said in 2015, I'm going to invest in 100 companies. I said it out loud. But in 2017, I wrote this headline to myself. I'm the only one who can see it. It's in my drafts, and it says, quote, and I capitalized it as if it was going to be a headline, Backstage Capital invests in 100 companies. And the date was whatever in 2020, a random date. And
you're ahead of schedule.
Oh, I'm definitely, and ended up investing in my 100th company in May 2018. And I really believe that it had a lot to do with that. And I think, another example would be like a partner that I want to join us, or an investor that we want to become on board. I'll put their name in this headline, like blah 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 joins Backstage Capital as an LP, or these different things that, like, what would you want to happen? Write your own headlines. What should it look like in a year? What does it look like in 6 months, in 5 years? And it's just a turn on any kind of visualization or vision board and all that. But for me, it was very specific, and it was very helpful, because not only was it like aspirational, but it was like part of the intention. What am I trying to do with this movement and this mission? I'm trying to make headlines like this happen. Now, months and years later, you have cover of Fast Company. I just a couple of weeks ago, I was the pull quote at the top of USA Today front page.
Wow.
Yeah, like all sorts of stuff.
You remember what that was? What the pull quote
I said that if there's anyone we should double down on, it's Black women. Yeah, and it was a wonderful piece about Black women in Silicon Valley, and a lot of people who are doing great and working on this.
I'm going to try and summarize. So, because these are powerful, I think this is the tactical stuff that it's easy to say, oh man, I was out of my luck and now I'm on the cover of Fast Company. Yeah. But it's just like, what do you wake up and do every day? That's what most of the people who watch and listen, they want to know. And so there's first of all, you were in the community, you were researching things you were passionate about. You asked yourself the question, like the why do I want to do this? I think part of your answer was that you were, you thought that instead, if you could help other people do this, we're basically, amplifying your own journey, but what about if we 10x that or 100x it? Writing headlines is huge, that's key. Do you write, can I go one layer deeper on the headline part? Do you write the headlines as if they've already happened?
No, I write the headline for when I want them to happen.
Okay.
So I put a date on them.
Wow.
I put a date on them, and it changes and it moves. This is yours. This is your private thoughts and your thing. So you can move things around. Something didn't happen, or something happened faster than you thought, or this can change. And it's so helpful to look at them, and if you can, kind of keep old things there, just sit down so you can just see it, and just keep changing and adapting. Like I have learned how to adapt mid-sentence. Because I get so many no's, so many negative things are thrown at me. You have to learn to adapt. And writing these headlines is just your way of keeping track of what you thought was possible a few months ago, what's important to you today, et cetera.
Wow. Is there a frequency that you review these? Is it every day?
No. Well, no. I probably
is it the writing?
A weekly basis. Okay. I'll notice it. I'll look at it. I'll add to it. It's not every day. I know that an everyday for me is in researching. Okay. I still to this day spend as much time as I can, and there's a lot. I have 300, 400 inbound messages a day. I have 35 or so people working at Backstage. There's a lot going on, but I make sure that I'm always learning. And because the moment you stop learning, it's over.
Right.
It's over. There's always going to be someone who's hungrier than you. There's always going to be someone who's better than you if you're not keeping up with things and if you're complacent. Like being mediocre and complacent are two of my biggest fears. It's just being,
Can we talk about a couple other fears?
Sure.
What else you got?
I mean, like the normal ones of, I don't think I'm afraid of death. I'm afraid of pain. That sort of I think I'm afraid of that. I'm mostly afraid of people that I care about, just having some sort of, I have this true, it's an irrational fear, but I also feel like some of my paranoia tends to happen. It's more like visions rather than being paranoid. I have this thing where I feel like if I become really successful, something will happen to somebody. I feel like there's this balance in life that I'm not 100% allowed to be just completely okay, because I've for 35 years
you're carrying that
always
around.
had this chaos. So for instance, the day that I was able to announce Fast Company being on the cover, and it was a huge day, my mom's sister, her oldest sister, went into her last few hours of living, and her husband was paralyzed. And I'm laughing not because it's funny, but because one of my greatest fears actually happened, and it was just like, are you serious? I don't know.
There's some
scorecard
weird out there.
Yeah, and I'm just like, that's weird. But it's
good.
It's definitely paranoia because things happen all the time. Bad things happen all the time. Good things happen all the time. There are things called coincidences, and but I'm just afraid. I think everyone's afraid of their loved ones.
Of course, that's the nature of the question. It's easy for people who are listening or watching to sit in here and hear you talk about this is an amazing arc, and just knowing that
I'm terrified of that.
Okay,
I'm terrified of that. I'm also afraid of people on my team not having health insurance because of something that I did. Like I'm always making sure that I'm always fundraising, and it's not because I like fundraising. It's just that I'm terrified that our great health coverage goes away. I'm not afraid of losing just money in general.
Healthy attitude.
My relationship with money is very okay. I like it for what it is. It's a tool. I like for what it can do to make things better.
Yep.
I like the challenge of earning it and making money work for me.
Yeah.
I think that's great after 35 years, being able to now flip that, and hopefully the next 35 years I can build wealth, and that's the goal. I want to be incredibly successful when it comes to capital, because I think that that's it's a representation of something. But I am not afraid of like, being poor.
You slept on the floor.
Yeah, I've lived through that. I don't want it to happen, but I'm not afraid of it. I'm not like, there's nobody who, that's why I'm so outspoken. And that's why I'm so comfortable with myself. It's because, what are you going to threaten me with? Most people try to threaten me in some way of my livelihood. It's like, I like string cheese and Diet Coke before you, in a wine glass before you, and I'm gonna like it after you. Like, I'll be broke again. I'll still have that poster of my Fast Company cover, though. Keep me warm at night.
That's right. You said something earlier in our conversation, which was, it was sort of an instruction, for lack of a better word, for people in power. A recommendation, I think is how you put it. I have a recommendation for people in power. Can you make some other recommendations? Because a lot of those people listening to the show, and I think whether you're in a position of power or not, we can all learn from your perspective. So what are some other shoulds or oughts or considerations that you would invoke?
I think if you're in power, if you have privilege, all of that, I really think that, not just, you probably hear share your privilege. Yeah. I'll reiterate that. I'll say that, share your privilege, nothing wrong with it. But let's look at that a little bit. First of all, realize that you have privilege and what privilege is. Privilege to me is not a bad word. Entitlement is a bad word. So realize that almost every human being has some privilege. And that, for me, my privilege is that I can walk. I'm not in a wheelchair. I have my mental faculties when I can remember things. I'm tall. I have that privilege. Now, a lot of things I don't have a privilege, and I have to kind of look at someone else's privilege. But I think that sometimes affluent white men, because right now they're getting yelled at a lot, and I do some of the yelling. I think sometimes they just going to close off, and they're like, it's not my fault I was born in this body. Like, back off. It's not my fault. My dad and my mom has some money, and you want me to be broke? I've sat down with people and talked about it. It's not so much in blaming or being upset that you have it. It's more like, that's great that you have it. We need more of that. We need as much privilege as we can get, and share that, share it with people. Yeah. And one example that I give for people who may be privately concerned about sharing their privilege, and sometimes this is a deep fear that some people have, that if they share it, it goes away or it's diminished or something to that effect, is, if imagine that you are at a standing room only concert at your favorite place to see shows, and it's standing room only, and you can still hear people. It's that kind of small kind of place. And there's someone who is shorter than you, or if you're really, really short, someone in a wheelchair that's behind you. And they say friendly when it starts, hey, can you move to the side so I can see the stage? Now, in that split second, most people would say, sure. Most people wouldn't just stand there and be an ass. Most people would say, sure, of course. Yeah. Of course. When that happens, you get to see the stage and enjoy the show. That person gets to see the stage and enjoy the show. And you are still the same height. You have not lost any inches on your height. Everything is cool. That's, to me, what sharing privilege is and could be.
Yeah. And
so I would say, dissect it a little bit and think of it that way, and it'll brighten someone's day or their life to do that. That's part of it.
So powerful. Great, beautiful nugget there. Thank you for sharing it.
No problem.
Thing too, I was reminded of as you were talking about your journey just a moment ago, is, are there things that you see in the next near future that are coming like a freight train that other people don't see? Because you talked about the diversity and inclusion movement in 2012, long before there was a tag and an idea and it had a namesake. They're clearly, with you being the avid researcher and in the role that you're in right now, and being able to help other people, what are some things that you see that the rest of us are not?
Well, it's on the same track. It's not that I've gone out to look at something else. It's actually on the same track. It's where we are in this story. I think people may think, okay, well, I have added the 10 black ladies that I was given the list of to my Twitter feed. I am now woke. Everything's taken care of. There's that girl over there who writes checks to black people. We're good. I think what I see is in the next 2 years, now I've been saying this for 2 years, now we're getting closer and closer to it, 2019, 2020, there are going to be, because of many different types of forces, there are going to be outsized exits for underrepresented, underestimated founders. It's going to happen. You kind of almost, again, too late to get in on those, but it's going to happen. Okay. And when that happens, just like most fads, a lot of venture and other types of money is going to be piled on and thrown into it and willy-nilly. And so I say to founders who are underrepresented, get your buckets out, catch the rain, but hold on to it, because it's the exact same time that the market is about to go crazy.
Got it.
So hold on to this money. Don't think that you have made it. It's a heyday. Let's do a team retreat in the Bahamas. Really focus and understand that it's a fickle beast. And it will go away, and you're going to need that money in 2021 and 2022 when it's gone away. And it's even more of a reason to be so incredibly focused on revenue and sustainability early on and not need us. Don't need venture capitalists. I'm begging you, do not need us. Do not seek us out. Do not seek them out. Have them come to you and give them every reason to. I also think that if you're an investor or someone who works at a company who's an M&A or who can make moves or be a customer for these founders, now is the time to get in with those founders and with those companies, because what's going to happen is 2 years from now, the people who are calling you up and saying, will you please take the meeting? Will you please take the meeting? I have something. A lot of them are going to turn their backs on you in 2 years. You're going to have the same CMO job, and they're going to be in their heyday, and they're going to turn their backs to you when you're asking them at the conference as you just saw them speak. And this is very personal because it happens to me all the time. They're going to turn their back and say, you weren't with me, could care less about me then. Why now? So you don't have to, you're not expected to learn everything and have this inauthentic relationship with different cultures. But just like anything that you do, people get excited about Bitcoin, people get excited about blockchain, about AI, autonomous vehicles. What do? These really intelligent investors. They research the heck out of it. They talk to as many people as they can. They learn who the players are. Yep. Do the same thing when it comes to diverse founders, because pretty soon the word diverse is going to go away, and it's going to be, you're not going to think, oh, what happened to that diverse founder? You're going to think about, oh, can that guy give me a job because he just sold his company? Because this is just, I predicted, and then I made it happen, but I predicted I would invest in 100 companies by 2020. And people laughed at me, laughed me out the room, laughed in my face. It has now happened. I predicted that in 2012, I predicted that in the next 5 years, everybody would be talking about diversity. It has happened. So when I tell you that people who are underestimated today are going to be running certain things in 2 years, and by the way, asterisk, Atlanta is going to blow the F up.
Wow.
In the next 2 years.
This is a prediction.
Oh my, it is absolutely, quote me, it is already blown up. It's already been doing its thing, but it is about to be real in Atlanta.
Let's pull on that one more time. Okay. So not just Atlanta, we talked about the decentralization. You went to Silicon Valley, met with these classic investors.
Sure.
I've also raised money from a lot of those same investors, and Creative Live has an outpost there, a lot of our executive team. Yet everybody I know is talking about Austin, Texas, Salt Lake City, Raleigh, Atlanta, Seattle.
I've been to those 5 places all in the last 3 months.
There you go.
And I can tell you they're right.
So is it a massive decentralization, or is it literally Atlanta, and is it literally Denver? Or
I think Atlanta's going to be a bright star on the map.
Okay.
I definitely think it's going to be a decentralization across the board, though.
Okay.
And the way I look at it is just like you live in, I'm not really good on the sports stuff, so I may be wrong, but football and handball, I don't know what it is. Just like people love their local teams,
yep.
and it doesn't matter what city you're in, you have this team that you love, yep. right? I think that's what it's going to be like for tech hubs across the country. I think it's going to be like, they're going to be these heroes that come out, and because it's across the country, they're going to look a little bit different. You're going to like, white men have nothing to worry about. You are going to be in charge until the day you die. It's going to happen. You have so much power. There's decades and centuries that have to go by before
you're going to
be
able to see the stage.
You're going to be able to see the stage just fine. But they're going to merge these other leaders, and they're going to represent different cities and states, and it's going to be really, really beautiful and wonderful. And I would also recommend, if you are still, for some reason, sitting in Silicon Valley with your feet on your desk, you still haven't gotten the memo, let me give it to you. Just like these college and professional teams send out scouts to sit on the sidelines at high school games in Des Moines, this is what you need to be doing. You don't need to wait for someone to walk into your office. You need to be hop, skip, and jump on that Southwest flight. Get yourself a wing exit. You a lot of leg room. Good. They don't have a lounge, but you'll be fine. You'll be just fine. And get out there and meet people in different states, and it's the people who have figured that out. I mean, even the traditional investors who have figured that out, they're going to win too. It's just like Steve Case talks about. Yep. It's not just Black and brown founders and women. It's like going into cities that people could have cared less about in the tech world, and they're on. So that's why Atlanta to me is so interesting.
What about Philly?
Philadelphia, we just launched an accelerator, and we are in 4 cities. One of them is Philadelphia. The first one that we chose was Philadelphia.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot about Philadelphia.
Yeah, Philadelphia, we're
culturally,
in Detroit.
there's like a really strong reinvention going on there.
It's amazing, and there's a lot going on, and it's comical to think that some investors think that they're doing someone a big favor by going to visit. I'll go see you. You can have me in your city. No, these people are working on amazing things. Yeah. And you are lucky if you get to participate. I mean, I'm just so passionate about that, because it's just right in their faces.
Well, your passion comes through. So, but you just did a great thing, and I want to put a pin in that, which is give a lot of advice to people who need to hear it on the on the venture side, and people who are
angels
are in a position
all
of
sorts
privilege.
of
We'll call
it.
Let's flip the script now, and for those people, because you also gave some advice like, hey, if you can make your business work without venture capital, great. Don't feel like you got to come seek us. But what other advice would you have for the population, the creators and the entrepreneurs who are listening, regardless of socioeconomic status, race, gender, orientation? Like, do you have some prescriptive advice?
I mean, just be you. Don't lose yourself in all of this. There are all sorts of interesting models coming out now for finance, for capital. So if you're over there selling your soul to the devil because you want some of this venture money, in a minute you're gonna be obsolete. Like, that venture's gonna be obsolete in a minute, and you would have sold your soul to get a little bit of money that you could get for much cheaper and for much more dignity somewhere else. I promise you, people are working on that.
Like Kickstarter,
like crowdfunding, and just people who are just fed up with traditional models, and people who also, you talk about Salt Lake City. There's Bryce in Salt Lake City who is working on this different model. You have the ZebraCon. You have people working on that in Philadelphia and in Portland. You have all sorts of people talking about debt financing and revenue shares. And again, you have this resurgence. I just sat with Ben, CEO of MailChimp, And he has $600 million in revenue 2018 and had not taken a dime of venture. And we were the first, Backstage was the first VC to step foot in their and like to have an interview in front of their employees.
You can come in,
yeah,
you can see the stage.
They did this whole disclaimer before we went on.
Wow.
They were like, we know they're VCs, give them a chance. But to me, if I were starting a company, which I've started two, Backstage Capital, Backstage Studio, if I were starting a company from scratch today, and someone like me existed in the world and I was somewhere else, and we had all these people that exist right now. We have all these awesome investors that exist and are playing in the same sandbox. I would do everything I possibly could to keep as much equity as I possibly humanly could before I ever thought about going to get someone else's money. I've raised money and I invest money. I know what I'm talking about. It is a hard cycle to get out of.
Yeah.
And I call venture capitalists reluctant drug dealers. We know that as soon as we give that first check, you're in.
Yeah.
And so you have power beyond your wildest dreams right now. I am jealous of people who have just started a company because they have 100% of their company. I'm jealous of angel investors because they're not beholden to LPs. The thing that makes you feel like that you have a lesser footing and lesser positioning is what is enviable about your situation. If you own 100% of what you're working on, hold on to that for dear life. And don't look back.
Amazing advice. I can think of no better way to end the interview. We've gone a little long. I wanted to say thank you so much for being on the show. Huge fan.
Thank you.
It's been inspiring to hear from you. We'll do everything we can to shine the light on Backstage, and this is such a cool thing that you've built.
Thank you. BackstageCapital.com. Check out all of our founders.
Yeah, they're
the show. They're the headliners.
The close is. Are there some? Just basically the 100 companies or so that you've done business with, they're listed there?
They're listed there. There's also another microsite called BackstageCapital.com/100, just 100. And that gives you all of our past. It gives a great snapshot of what we've done. You can also follow me.
I was going to say, what's the best coordinates for you?
Instagram and Twitter, Arlan was here. ARLAN was here.
Okay.
And I'm on there a lot yelling at people.
We didn't get into that. I've seen you. It's just inspirational that you can hold your space so well and be a leader, a voice to look up to.
Well, come on, hang out with us. It'll be fun.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Signing off for another episode. Hope you enjoyed that. Look forward to being with you again tomorrow.